which we are behind right now. We're gonna have of course, we appreciate you taking time coming over and talking to us on behalf of TCIS. See, it's different. TCICS. And then the introduction by Dr. Abdi. And then from 6:40 to 7, candidates are going to introduce themselves so people get to know them. From 7 to 7:30, questions and a session by TCICS. The chair of the TCICS ask questions on BC's challenges and engage with the candidates. From 7:30 to 8, question and answers by open floor for attendees to ask questions and engage with the candidates. 8 to 8:20, 8 to 8:20, networking, informal discussion, and refreshments. Attendees will have the opportunity to speak with candidates one-on-one. 8:15 to 8:30, closing remarks by candidates, final thoughts from each candidate, summarizing their vision and call to action. Thank you and acknowledgements. Mr. Abdi?
Thank you so much for coming here and your presence in this meeting, and thank you our esteemed candidates from the NDP that they accepted our invitation and they came here and they put time. I know that your schedule is so busy, but it was an honor that you accepted and you participate here. I think it's better you first introduce yourself, and then I will start with some questions that are general, and then we will open it to the floor for us. So, thank you, Judy.
So hello, I am Jennifer Blatherwick. I'm the candidate for Coquitlam-Largo. So my husband and I have lived here since 2008, and we have been very proud to raise our children on the unceded territory of the Coquitlam people. I've had a small business while I've lived here. I have run a nonprofit that does outreach to kids who are at risk, and I've also served 2 terms as a school trustee here in Coquitlam for the K-12 public education system. So I think that one of the best ways to talk about politics is to talk about personal things, because you don't get into politics unless you have a personal reason to do so. And many years ago, when I was serving on the Citizens Advisory Committee for Corrections, which means you're part of the civilian oversight for the justice system, one of the things that I discovered was that the vast majority of people that were incarcerated had a learning disability. And like 7 out of 10 of the people who were in the system had a learning disability. And I thought, oh, I am in the wrong place. I need to be further upstream. So I went into education, into overseeing the education system, because that was where problems were beginning, when we weren't fully supporting the kids that were in the system at the time to grow to their fullest potential. And so after serving for 6 years on the school district here in Coquitlam, I love it, and it is valuable work. It is the work of constantly taking care of one of the most important things in our lives is children. But the funding and the structures that surround these systems are all provincial. The funding is provincial. The rules are provincial. And so for me, when the opportunity came to run for MLA, I took it. Especially because I also, as I mentioned, run a nonprofit that does outreach to kids who are coming out of foster care, and to kids who are at risk, and to families who are struggling. And one of the things that I saw that was so important to me was that the NDP changed some of the rules. So normally, before the NDP came in, when kids come out of foster care at 19, you're done. And that is it. The government says you're finished, and we no longer support you. But what was happening was, I don't know about you, but when I was 19, I was not the wisest version of myself. I still needed the support and the care of my parents. I still needed a wise adult to guide me through things. I was not totally ready to take on the world independently, especially with no friends or relations. And so when the NDP brought in new support systems for kids coming out of foster care, that meant that they would be supported to get into job re-education, into training, into post-secondary, that they would have someone to be with them to help them walk through the process of getting that first bank account, that mattered to me because it changed the lives of the kids that I worked with. And I saw kids going from situations where they had very little hope to feeling they were connected back to society, to seeing them getting jobs, to seeing them successfully getting into apartments and going on to having productive lives. So that mattered to me, and it's why I was willing to come and stand in my community for the NDP. And for my husband and I, because we have 5 kids, we care about a lot of the things that we see in the community. When I knock on doors, I talk to people and they care about affordability. What they care about right now is how much things cost, because we're seeing across the globe prices go up. And I saw that the NDP was committed to building houses. And I saw they were looking into making sure that people who were using housing as a speculation tool were not going to be prioritized over people who are using housing to live in. So all of those things matter to me and my family, and I know from knocking on thousands of doors, they matter to people here in the community. And another thing that I deeply care about is the medical system. So my dad is Dr. John Blatherwick, and he was the head of Vancouver Coastal Health for years. And one of his big ambitions was to streamline international medical professional system. And what he used to do is he used to find people placements on military basis to get them their 6 months of residency. But when he retired, the system didn't work as well. But over the last 10 years, we've really seen shifts. And over the last year, especially, the NDP has managed to streamline that process so that we've now credentialed more than 2,000 internationally trained doctors just this last year. And those are the kinds of things that matter to families, and they matter to me. And so that's why I'm here. And I'm so grateful that you've organized this event today. Thank you for bringing us all together, because I think we can only really learn when we listen to each other. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Rick Glumac, and I am running to be the MLA for Port Moody Burquitlam, which includes Anmore and Balcarra. Before I got involved in politics, I worked in the tech sector. I graduated from SFU with a degree in electronics engineering, and I worked in computer animation on movies like Shrek 2 and Madagascar. I worked electronic arts on numerous video games. But what changed in my life was when my daughter was born in Los Angeles. I was working on a film. We wanted to raise our family in a place that's a community, close to nature, and a place that is close. And if you've ever been to Los Angeles, it's a good place to visit, but I wouldn't want to live there very long. So we moved to Port Moody. Port Moody is a wonderful place. I've been there since 2006. When I moved there, I started getting involved in the community and volunteering and different things. And I ended up running for city council and got elected in 2011. So I served 2 terms, almost two full terms in Port Moody City Council. In 2017, when the provincial election was happening, I wasn't planning really on running provincially, but I was growing more and more concerned with how the provincial government was doing things. I very much believe that provincial government, one of the most important things we have to do is run a strong economy, create jobs for people in the province, but also invest in people, invest in our healthcare, in our education. And I was seeing those investments going down and down, and it was causing me a lot of concern. So I ran and I got elected. And it was the first time in my riding that BC NDP got elected in a general election since 1991. And we formed government by 1 seat. So your vote really matters, because it's so close sometimes how, we didn't have enough seats as a party. We had to partner with another party. We had a minority government, but we accomplished a lot of things. I became, my role in government was Parliamentary Secretary of Technology initially, and it gave me the opportunity to use my background in technology to meet with companies and to do work to promote business in British Columbia. Then I got involved with cross-border issues. So I worked with governments across in Washington State and other states, and on economic development issues there as well, and became president of the Pacific Northwest Economic Region, and did a lot of work there trying to work on clean energy in particular. And one of the things I was able to do as president was get a study funded to look at the hydrogen economy in the region. So a lot of exciting work going on in government. I'm so proud to have been part of a BC NDP government for 2 terms. I'm excited tonight. We're going to talk about a lot of issues, and we can dig in a little bit more about some of the great work that we've been doing and contrast that to what's at risk in this election. So I look forward to doing that. Thank you very much.
Salam, man Jodi Hastam, Yakami Farsi Baladam. I'm really working to try and learn more Farsi. We have a beautiful Iranian community here in Coquitlam. My name is Jody Wickens. I am your BC NDP candidate for Coquitlam Burke Mountain. I want to thank the Tri-City Iranian Cultural Society for providing us with this opportunity to engage, because I think it's really important. I'm a proud mom, wife, and leader in our community of Coquitlam Burke Mountain. I have lived in this community for 20 years. I have an 18-year-old and a 14-year-old. I've served on various boards. I was on the Douglas College School Board. I chaired the Campus Planning Committee. I love our vibrant Iranian community in Coquitlam. I think it makes our community a better place. I've learned from so many Iranians in my life, through my work life and my personal life, and I'm really proud to be here with all of you. Prior to me getting involved in politics, I delivered therapy services for children in their homes for children who had autism. So I worked with lots of families in this community, and lots of Iranian families. That's when I was my first experience working with the Iranian community. I got fed a lot, lots of nuts and yummy food. And that's where my passion for community and giving back came from. So, through that work, I was a strong advocate with families. I helped them advocate for their children's needs in school and in healthcare. And in 2016, I actually ran in this riding to be MLA. We had a provincial by-election. It means that there was a seat open, and so I was asked to run, and I ran and I won, and so I was the MLA for Coquitlam Burke Mountain for a period of time. I was the spokesperson for childcare and women, and I was the youngest woman in our BC legislature, and I'm really proud of that time. I think we live in a wonderful place in British Columbia. It's a beautiful place to raise your family. I am grateful for the opportunities that I have in leadership, and that I can bring my voice as a young woman forward in our legislature. In 2017, we fell just short, so we didn't make it by 87 votes. It was the closest riding in the province. And I was disappointed by that, but I had the opportunity to go back into community, and so I work as an executive for a nonprofit delivering various services in our community to children, early intervention services, speech, physiotherapy, occupational therapy, support for refugee families. And so I've spent the last 7 years raising my family, working as a leader. My husband's a small business owner and a truck driver, and so I've had the opportunity to watch the investments that our government has been making over the last 7 years. And those actions have really helped our community, and they've really helped the families in our community. And I'm proud of those things, and I'm proud that we're going to be able to talk about those things more tonight. Our current MLA, Finn Donnelly, who won in 2020, a BC NDP MLA won, he is retiring. And so they called me up again and asked me if I would consider running in this election. And I thought about it. I talked to my family, and running to be your MLA excites me because I get to bring my voice and your voice to the BC legislature to advocate for the needs of our community. And I'm really excited for that. So looking forward to the rest of the night. Memnoon, and I'll look forward to talking to all of you.
Okay, thank you so much for introduction. I want to ask some general question and some challenges that the family is now facing. I know that NDP government did a lot, especially during the COVID. It was one of the great government in the Canada that they did very well. But still we have some challenges in the BC actually. I want to ask regarding these challenges that there is in the BC. One, I'm starting with the healthcare. So everybody knows about what's happening in the healthcare. So I want to ask that, what step will you take to improve access to healthcare service in BC?
Okay, I'll answer that question.
Yeah.
So people have been facing challenges with wait times and access to a family doctor, and those are things that we've been working on as a government. So to give you a few examples of some of the work that we've been doing, last year we signed a new contract with family doctors. It's one of the best contracts in a generation, and we're seeing over 800 new family doctors sign on to that contract in the last year. And we expect to see that kind of people signing in to be family doctors continue in the years to come. There's been historically an underinvestment in healthcare with the previous government, the BC Liberal government. In a time when we have an aging population, we have immigration, that was a time back in up to 2016 where we should have been investing extra into healthcare, but unfortunately that didn't happen. So we're catching up now to that. And another way that we're catching up is we've announced that we're going to be building a new medical school in Surrey. And this is the first medical school in Western Canada in 50 years. We know that we have to train more medical professionals here in our province in order to meet the demands and lower wait times and all of that. Our issue is people, getting people in the right positions, and so some other ways that we've been dealing with that is through streamlining the international credentialing process. And just to give you an example, like if somebody from another country wants to apply to nursing, it used to be you'd have to apply separately if you want to be a registered nurse versus a nurse practitioner. Now we've streamlined all this, and you can do the application all at once. You used to be you had to write like English exams like several times over and over, and we've streamlined that process as well. And the results that we've seen just in the last year, we've hired 2,000 internationally trained nurses in British Columbia, and that's a big change, and 900 internationally trained doctors. So it's very exciting. We're starting to see this turnaround, this issue of not having enough doctors and nurses in our province. We're starting to correct that, and we hope to be able to continue that work if we're re-elected government.
Thank you. What about the private health system? Do you believe on that or not? Private health.
Well, I mean, if you start creating a private health system at the same time you have a public health system, what you'll see is all the best doctors will start going to the private system. And then the wait times will start happening again in the public system. And then we have an inequitable system and we don't want to see that in our province. What we need is just investment in people. And we can do that. The previous government really put us in a difficult position by underfunding healthcare, but that doesn't mean we have to go to a private system. We just have to invest in our public system appropriately. And if you give us another term, I think you're going to see a lot of good changes in the years to come. Okay,
thank you so much. And the second question that I think is important for some people is addressing the addiction issue. It's a lot, and everybody facing with this problem. and they are see that what's happening in these streets.
Yeah. So I'm gonna stand up because I'm short. The opioid crisis is incredibly concerning. It's concerning to me. It's concerning to people in our community. That crisis is we're facing that across the country, across North America. British Columbia is mild-tempered, like temperature is mild place to live, and so homelessness and addiction happens in places like this more often. And so there's a number of things that we're doing as a government to address those issues. Firstly, investing in treatment. And so 650 new treatment beds in this province have been invested in so that when people are struggling with addiction, they can access the treatment that they need. It is not fast enough. You know, we still need to do more, and we know that. And so David Eby, our Premier, is committed to that hard work, and we're working on it every single day. I think we're one of the only places in North America that actually has a Minister of Mental Health and Addictions to focus on that issue so that we could get the people the help that they need when they need it. A couple other things that we're doing is that we're attacking drug trafficking with investments in policing. So hiring new police, hiring more infrastructure in that. We actually have a task force around drug trafficking and gangs. And so those law enforcement officers are working hard and diligently every day to address illegal things coming into our province that's exasperating the opioid crisis. We also, our Premier's wife is a doctor, and our Premier really believes in science and evidence and using data to address issues that we face. And so we've hired leading psychiatrists and experts to help us address this issue in the ways that the experts are saying that we need to address it. Not the politicians. The experts need to tell us how do we move forward on this really complex issue that so many people are having challenges facing. And then the other part that I'm also really proud of and excited about is early intervention. We know that early intervention strategies work and they're less costly. And so investing in youth mental health and ensuring that youth don't get involved in drugs is going to help us combat this issue so that they don't become adults that are using drugs. And so in the Tri-Cities, our government has invested in a youth mental health hub called the Foundry, where youth can go in and get access to clinical supports, whether that's mental health supports, peer supports, psychiatry supports, addiction supports, and a doctor. So if they need a primary care physician, they can access that here as well. So that's being built in the Tri-Cities as we speak, and that's really important work that we're doing to address our addiction crisis. I think it is really important to stress that John Restad, in his plans, has put in a $4 billion cut to health. You know, that is a risk that I think is a huge risk to take with our current health system, and it certainly will not help our addiction crisis, and it's not going to create more beds in this province. It's not going to help us address this issue in a meaningful way. These are people in our community that need help. The BC NDP is a compassionate party that believes in supporting people when they need us the most. And I'm proud of that work that's being done, and I will work every day alongside a team that cares about those people who are struggling. Thank you.
You know, due to this immigration, you know, that a lot of people now immigrate, and our education systems are, you know, I think it's losing the performance. So how will you ensure the public education in BC receives adequate funding to maintain high standards?
Thank you. I'll stand up too, just because sometimes I'm not quite loud enough. So I've been a school trustee here for 6 years, and I've worked with our education system here in Coquitlam. And the challenges that we have in urban environments are a little bit different than the ones we have in rural ones, but I'm going to speak mostly about the things that happen in urban environments, because that's where we are. So there's two pieces to funding in an education system, and the TCICS has been working on both. So one is making sure that there are safe school buildings for kids to go to school in. And the piece that I've been really working here on Coquitlam, we have been building new schools and additions to schools for the last 6 years since the NDP came in. So right now, we just approved a new 300 student addition to Charles Best. There's a new school being built up on Mark Mountain. We already have Coast Salish. We have a replacement for Irvine Elementary. We're just announced a new replacement for Montgomery Middle down in Coquitlam. And those are the kind of investments that we need, because we know that we're getting more kids all the time. That British Columbia is a popular place to be, and people are coming here, and they're coming here partially because our education system is high quality. One of the things that we do within the system to make sure that we're doing what we can to make sure kids are successful is we do early intervention. So we're testing early in classrooms to make sure that kids are keeping up with their reading, their writing, and we're also working with them to make sure that they have good and solid mental health. Now for funding, in British Columbia, we do that per student. So there's per student funding. And BC NDP has committed over and over to supporting education. There were many years there where we saw freezes on the amount of funding per child. And during the BC NDP, that's gone up every year. And that matters because, like every other thing, you know what happens if your amount of funding stays flat. As the cost of everything rises, that same amount of dollars doesn't buy the same amount of things. So we really need to make sure that we have a government that continues to invest and reinvest in education so that we're able to continue to provide that same level of support for kids and make sure that they're successful, especially as they go on in life, meet the challenges that we want them to be able to meet.
I think this one will be, that you answered this one, you're already in government. So it's regarding economy and job. We have several top universities in BC that train highly skilled professionals, but unfortunately, many of them leave the province after graduation due to a lack of job opportunities. Do you have any plan to retain these talents in the province, such as establishing research centers or supporting the creation of knowledge-based organizations?
Absolutely, yes. I think BC has a thriving tech sector and doing a lot of great work on clean energy and innovation front. We're leading the world in many different sectors, and we want to support the growth of companies here in BC. So we have, for example, a Crown Corporation that holds a $500 million fund called InBC. It's called InBC because we want to keep the companies in BC and keep the talent in BC. And we've been using that fund to help companies grow. And when we're talking about, for example, healthcare, training doctors, one way that we're helping to keep doctors in BC is a student loan forgiveness program. So we, if you stay in BC for a certain number of years, you can have your loan forgiven. And the hope is that a doctor will establish within the province and set up a practice and stay here. And that's what we want to see more and more of. So there's just so many different examples of here. I could talk about many different sectors and many different ways that we're trying to support keeping talent and keeping companies within the province. I mean, I've been working mostly recently on clean energy. So I know, for example, that 50% of hydrogen and fuel cell companies are located in British Columbia. In all of Canada, they're mostly here. And companies like H-Tech, that's building hydrogen fueling stations. Ballard is an incredible company. I mean, Ballard had hydrogen buses back in the Olympics, but what they never had was a local source of hydrogen production, and that's where HTEC is doing some work. And I think if we also, again, my own experience working with our neighbors to the south, I think down there they're funding a hydrogen hub, $1 billion investment from the Inflation Reduction Act. If we can work together within a region to grow that economy, we can find opportunities to create more and more jobs here in BC in areas that are leading in terms of the green economy. And that's where I think we have an incredible advantage. We have all these legacy dams here in BC that we can use to basically regulate sustainable energy projects and things like that, and there's just so much opportunity there. So I could go on and on about that one, but there are many programs, let's just say.
But it's important. I see I'm more than, I think it's now 15 years in SFU. I'm working there and doing research there, but unfortunately when I see that they graduated, everybody run away from this because we put a lot of funding for them. They are getting money from province, and after graduation everybody goes run away from this province. It's so sad. I don't know how we can fix it effectively, because in some places, in USA they have some supporting the startups. They can give them some space or some funding. They start their own business in the tech. It's so important. I think and create a lot of jobs.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So I think the last question is regarding the transportation. Given the increasing population and traffic congestion due to limited transportation infrastructure, what plan do you have to address this issue? Especially this low heat use.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about.
Especially this low heat use.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about this one because I'm married to an owner-operator, and he's a truck driver, and so he's on the roads a lot, so I hear about traffic, and I understand the challenges that people face sitting in traffic, and we don't want people sitting in traffic. And so I'm really proud of the investments our government is making in infrastructure, widening Highway 1 out to Abbotsford, looking at a whole bunch of different ways that we build our province so that people can get around easily. So replacing the Patella Bridge is another thing. We live in the Lower Mainland in an area where you have to cross bridges to get places. And so when our government removed bridge tolls, that also really helped congestion because people stopped using other routes to get to the places they were going. So that was a really important decision that our government made. John Rustad has promised to bring those bridge tolls back. Conservative governments typically do cut things, and so money for that infrastructure and things that we need to invest in, I'm worried about that we're not going to be able to build the way that we need to. And so I know that our government understands that we don't want people sitting in traffic. We want them getting to work and to home and back to their families, to have good mental health, more time, so all of those things are important. So our government is making those investments. I know, again, during the pandemic, we had challenges. The costs of things have gone up. And so, when I chaired the Douglas College Campus Planning Committee, we were looking at building a new school for Douglas College. The costs of that, went up a ton just in the time frame that we were planning for it. Even on a personal level, when we moved into our home, we were going to build a fence. We got a quote for that fence. 5 years later, that quote was, triple the price, right? So materials and labor have gone up. So the cost of us building our infrastructure has gone up, and so that creates some challenges for our government in way of costs. But we are committed to continuing continuing to build in that infrastructure. We have a growing population. Hundreds of thousands of people have come to British Columbia over the last number of years, and so we need to make sure that we have those roads and bridges and access for people. And more on transportation, but I think one of my colleagues is going to talk about more infrastructure there as well.